In this video, I will show you a program that will write three numbers to a file named data.dat. Then the program will read the file, add the numbers, and display the sum. Before I start typing my code, I want you to notice that I have the file editor for idle on the left side of the screen, and on the right side of the screen, I had the Python shell. So after I finish typing my code on the left side and I run it, you'll see the result on the right side of the screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define a main method. I have to now create a file object, and because I'm going to be writing to the file, I'm going to call it ofile for output file. I'm going to output my data into it. I'm going to use the open method, which is used to either read or write to a file. So the first argument is going to be the name of the file, and I'm going to call my file data.dat, comma, and then what mode is my file going to be? So it's going to be in write mode, so I'm going to use a W for write mode. So now that I've created my file object, I can now write data to the file. So to write data to the file, I'm going to use the write method. So I'm going to say ofile.write, and my first data is going to be a number 10.0. Now, in order to put them in separate lines, I have to use the \n, which is a new line. Otherwise, it's going to put the numbers all on the same line, and I don't want it to do that. So my first number is going to be 10.0. Now, when you're inputting data to a file, or when you're writing to a file, you're going to write strings. That's why I placed the quotations around the value here. So then my second one is going to be 20.0 \n. My third number is 30.0 \n. And I just noticed that I misspelled right on this line, so I'm going to have to correct that. There we go. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to close the file because I want the data to be saved. Otherwise, when I write it, it won't save the data with what I've typed in. So I just say ofile.close. And it's important to always close your files after you open them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called sum and initialize it to 0.0, since I'm going to be adding to that number, since I'm going to be adding 10, 20, and 30 to that number. Now I have to create a file object that's going to read that file. So I'm going to call my file object ifile for input file equals open, and I want to read the data.dat file that I've created, but I want to open this file in read mode, so the R for read. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loop that's going to read the three values that are in the data.dat file. So for I in range, and since there's three numbers that I want to read, so it's going to read in range 3. So I'm going to create a variable called x, and I'm going to use the readLine method .readline. So ifile.readline is going to read the content of the file line by line. Now, because this is a string, I'm going to have to convert that string to a float, because notice that the values here are floats. So I'm going to say val equals float x. So x is a string, but now I got to convert it to a float so I can assign it to val, so I can add it to sum. So I'm going to say sum equals sum plus val. And that's the body of my loop. So this loop is gonna read the line, change the string to a float, assign it to val, add val to sum to the running total of sum, and then it's gonna have all the numbers. Okay. So now the last thing I want to do is I want to display the sum. So I'm going to use the print method to display the sum. So I'm going to print sum, and that'll display the sum to the screen. Actually, I'll make this a little bit better. I'll say the sum is comma sum. Okay. So now I can call my main method, and if I've done everything correctly, on the right side, it should print the sum is 60 because 10, 20, and 30 adds up to 60. So if I click run module, I must save it because I made changes. And we see the sum is 60, so the program worked. One last thing I want to show you is this data.dat file that I created. So here it is, data, and you don't see the dat, but you can see that it's a dat file. So I'm going to open it, and you see it open in Notepad. So 10, 20, and 30. So that's the file that I created in the first part of the program. So when you're dealing with file, it's important to realize that files you can only write or read strings to a file. So you may have to convert from a string to a number, or convert from a number to a string. If you're dealing strictly with strings, that's no problem because then you just don't have to worry about the conversion. So this concludes my presentation of how to write three numbers to a file, then read the three numbers and show the sum of those values.